Welcome to the Dark History Case. Tonight, we explore one of the most unsettling, confusing, and enduring mysteries of the 20th century. A case filled with unanswered questions, contradictory evidence, and theories that stretch from the logical to the unbelievable. This is the story of 9 young hikers who entered the frozen wilderness of Russia in 1959 and never returned alive. A story that remains unsolved more than 60 years later. A story the world knows as the Dyatlov Pass Incident. Our journey begins at the Ural Polytechnic Institute in Sverdlovsk, Soviet Russia. A group of highly skilled students and graduates, experienced skiers, mountaineers, and survivalists, prepared for an expedition deep into the Ural Mountains. Their goal was to reach a remote peak called Otorten, meaning "don't go there" in the language of the local Mansi people. To adventurers like them, a name like that wasn't a warning. It was a challenge. The expedition was led by Igor Dyatlov, a brilliant engineering student known for his calm leadership and exceptional skill in the wild. Joining him were 8 equally determined hikers: Zenaida Kolmogorova, Lyudmila Dubinina, Rustem Slobodin, Yuri Doroshenko, Yuri Krivonishenko, Alexander Kolevatov, Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, and Semyon Zolotaryov, an older and more experienced outdoorsman with a mysterious past. These weren't casual travelers. They were disciplined, prepared, and fearless. The kind of people who followed strict protocols and respected the dangers of nature. Their trip was expected to earn them the highest certification in Soviet hiking, Category 3, reserved for experts only. Their journey began on January 23, 1959. They boarded a train heading north, laughing, singing, and taking photos along the way. Every image captured a group full of energy and hope, young explorers who believed they could conquer any challenge. They continued by truck, then by ski, pushing deeper into a landscape of forests, frozen rivers, and mountains. Temperatures dropped as low as minus 30 degrees Celsius, but the group handled the conditions with confidence. Their early diary entries showed excitement, jokes, plans, dreams. On January 28th, one hiker, Yuri Yudin, fell ill and had to turn back. He didn't know it then. But this illness saved his life. He would become the only surviving member of the Dyatlov group, the last living witness to their smiles, their final jokes, and their last steps into the unknown. After Yudin left, the remaining 9 hikers continued. Logs found later showed they moved steadily, built shelters efficiently, and documented their journey with pride. There was nothing unusual, nothing strange, nothing to hint at the terror that awaited them. On February 1st, the group reached the slopes of a mountain known as Kholat Syakhl, meaning Mountain of the Dead in the Mansi language. They were supposed to move past this mountain toward their destination, Otorten, but strong winds, snowstorms, and poor visibility forced them off their planned route. Instead of turning back or seeking cover, they made a decision that puzzled investigators for decades. They set up camp in the open, on the side of the mountain, fully exposed to the brutal winter wind. Why? No one knows for sure. Some believe they didn't want to lose the altitude they had gained. Others think the group planned to practice emergency camping in harsh conditions. Whatever the reason, they built their tent on the slope, reinforced it, cooked a meal, and settled down for the night. It would be the last night of their lives. From that moment on, the story becomes a nightmare of confusion, fear, and inexplicable evidence. The hikers were never seen alive again. When their families didn't receive the expected telegram announcing their return, the search began. At first, rescuers found only silence, endless snow, empty forests, and no sign of 9 young adventurers. But on February 26th, after weeks of searching, a rescue team spotted something half buried in the snow on the mountainside. It was the tent, the Dyatlov group's tent, collapsing under snowfall, torn open from the inside, and abandoned. Everything from this point forward becomes stranger and stranger. Rescuers found boots, coats, gloves, and equipment neatly arranged inside, as if the hikers had left in a hurry or fled in fear, without taking any essential survival gear. Footprints leading away from the tent showed people walking barefoot, or in socks, or wearing only a single boot. Some prints were clear, calm, almost orderly, not the tracks of people running in panic, but the tracks of people who walked into certain death with deliberate steps. Why would 9 trained survivalists walk into a freezing blizzard without clothes, without shoes, without protection? This question haunts the case to this day. The footprints vanished as the trail reached a forest, and what rescuers discovered beneath the trees would deepen the mystery. But that's where part 1 ends. The stage is set. 9 hikers disappeared into a silent mountain. Their tent was cut open from the inside, and they walked barefoot into the night without explanation. Island, coated in frost, as if hiding the truth within their shadows. And then the searchers saw something dark beneath a cedar tree. 2 bodies, lying side by side, half naked. The first was Yuri Krivonyshenko, the second was Yuri Doroshenko, both wearing nothing but underwear, barefoot, their skin showing signs of exposure to extreme cold. A small fire had been built nearby, as if they tried desperately to stay alive. Branches high up in the cedar were broken, suggesting one of them may have climbed the tree, maybe to look for the tent, or to escape something. But something was wrong. Their hands were raw, scraped, and covered in torn skin, as if they had fought against something, or someone, or tried to climb the tree in terror. The rescuers didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning. 200 meters away, they found the body of Igor Dyatlov, the leader of the group. He was lying on his back, facing the direction of the tent, as if he was trying to return to it. He had no coat, no gloves, no boots, only a sweater, trousers, and a single sock. His fists were clenched, packed with snow. His expression frozen in determination or pain. Nearby lay Zenaida Kolmogorova, also heading toward the tent, her hands bruised, her legs scratched, her face showing deep signs of cold. She too had almost no clothing. A short distance further, they found Rustem Slobodin. He had a fractured skull, a clean, precise fracture, the kind rarely caused by falling in snow. Yet the investigators insisted it was not fatal. He too had little clothing, and like the others, he appeared to be crawling back toward the tent. 5 bodies found, 4 still missing. The official explanation tried to claim paradoxical undressing, a known phenomenon in hypothermia where victims mistakenly feel warm and remove clothing. But experienced hikers like these, trained in extreme winter survival, would never all fall victim to it the same way. Anderson, one of the rescuers, later reported that the scene didn't feel natural, that it felt like the hikers were forced into the cold, that they left the tent not out of confusion, but out of fear. Weeks passed before rescuers discovered the remaining 4 bodies, buried under 4 meters of snow in a ravine. These 4 were better dressed, wearing clothes taken from the first victims. This suggested something chilling. The hikers didn't run out of the tent in panic. Some left first. Others left later after realizing something was wrong. Inside the ravine lay Lyudmila Dubinina, Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, Alexander Kolovatov, and Semyon Zolotaryov, and these 4 bodies, changed the entire case. Their injuries were not caused by cold. They were not consistent with falling or natural accidents. They were catastrophic, violent, and completely unexplained. Thibaut Brignol had multiple skull fractures, massive ones, similar to the force of a car crash. Lyudmila's ribs were shattered. Her chest was crushed inward with a force no human could deliver. Kolovatov's neck showed signs of unnatural twisting. Zolotaryov had extreme chest compression, another rib cage crushed with tremendous force. The strangest part was this: there were no external wounds, no cuts, no bruising, nothing on the outside. The doctor who examined the bodies said the trauma was equivalent to being hit by a speeding vehicle, but the skin had no breaks, as if the force came from pressure, not impact. Even more disturbing, traces of radiation were found on their clothing. Not enough to be lethal, but far too high to be normal. Where did the radiation come from? Why only on some bodies? And why such severe internal injuries without any external marks? Investigators tried to dismiss it, calling it an irrelevant coincidence, but families weren't convinced. Hikers weren't convinced. And decades later, forensic experts still aren't convinced. There was more. Lyudmila's body had one final mystery. Her eyes were missing. Her tongue was gone. Some reports even suggested parts of her lips were torn. The official explanation was natural decomposition in running water. But the ravine was not warm, and bodies frozen in snow rarely lose organs so selectively. Meanwhile, the tent told its own story. It was cut open from the inside. This detail alone overturned every natural explanation. Why would 9 experienced hikers cut their way out of their own tent in freezing temperatures? Why flee into the blizzard half-dressed, knowing it meant certain death? Investigators invented explanations, but none fit the physical evidence. Some said an avalanche forced them out, but the slope angle was too low. Some said they panicked, but the tracks showed calm walking. Some said they were drunk, but they carried no alcohol. Some said a stove accident filled the tent with smoke, but the stove wasn't set up. Nothing matched. Nothing made sense. Nothing explained the brutal injuries or the pattern of the deaths. By the time Part 2 ends, the situation becomes clear. Something terrifying happened that night. Something that made 9 experienced hikers abandon their tent without clothes. Something that caused massive internal injuries without external wounds. Something that the Soviet authorities desperately tried to hide. The autopsies conducted on the 9 hikers only deepened the mystery. To this day, researchers cannot explain why their injuries looked like the result of massive, directed force, yet their skin showed no external damage. The first 5 hikers, the ones who died from exposure near the cedar tree and along the mountainside, had injuries consistent with hypothermia and minor physical trauma. But even their bodies contained strange details. Some had gray foam around their mouths, often a sign of extreme physical stress. One had a swollen lip and bloody nose, signs of internal pressure. Another had bruises shaped like finger marks, as if someone grabbed him. But the bodies found 4 meters below the snow told the real story. These injuries were something investigators had never seen before in a mountaineering case. Let's examine them one by one. Lyudmila Dubinina. Lyudmila suffered the most severe injuries of the group. Her ribs were completely crushed, both on the left and right sides. Her chest cavity was collapsed inward as if hit by an enormous, sudden force. Additionally, her eyes were missing. Her tongue was gone. Part of her lips and soft tissues were missing. She had traces of radioactive material on her clothing. The official reports suggested post-mortem decay. But several forensic experts later said the tissue removal was too clean to be explained by natural decomposition. Semyon Zolotaryov. Semyon was found lying face down in the ravine with a strange, frozen smile. Like Lyudmila, his ribs were crushed inward with tremendous force. The autopsy doctor stated the injuries were equivalent to those sustained in a high-speed car accident. Semyon was wearing another hiker's clothing, suggesting he survived longer and tried to protect himself. Another bizarre detail: he had a camera around his neck. To this day, no one knows why he brought a camera into a blizzard, or what he hoped to capture. Nikolai Thibault Brignol. Nikolai's skull fracture was massive, a long, deep crack. But once again, no external bruising, no crushed skin, no swelling, as if his skull was impacted, without the blow ever touching the outside. Alexander Kolovatov. Kolovatov's neck showed signs of violent twisting. His eyebrows and hair appeared prematurely burned or singed. His clothing also contained elevated levels of radiation. But the true mystery is how these four ended up in the ravine. It appeared as though they fell, but their injuries were far too severe for a simple fall. The ravine was not deep enough to cause rib cages to collapse inward, not unless some extraordinary force was involved. Even the lead medical examiner admitted the injuries could not have been caused by another person. The force was far too great. So, what was strong enough to crush rib cages without leaving a single bruise? This question remains one of the biggest unsolved elements of the case. Soviet secrecy begins. From the moment the bodies were found, the behavior of the Soviet authorities became extremely suspicious. Investigators photographed the bodies, collected documents, took notes, and then suddenly, within days, the entire case was classified. Families were silenced. Rescuers were warned never to speak. The case files were sealed in military archives until the late 1980s. The official conclusion released to the public was vague, almost absurd. The hikers died due to an unknown compelling force. That was it. No explanation, no deeper analysis. Just those four words. Even stranger, the area around Dyatlov Pass was declared off-limits for 3 years after the incident. Why? No avalanche risk, no public safety issue, no logical reason. Unless, of course, there was something the government didn't want people to find. Witness reports and suppressed testimonies. Multiple witnesses came forward with chilling statements after the incident. Strange orange orbs in the sky. Locals and soldiers reported seeing bright orange lights in the sky around the time the hikers died. These lights were spherical, moving silently across the mountains. Military records from the same region documented tests of parachute mines, explosives that detonate mid-air, producing shock waves strong, enough to crush bodies without external wounds. That description sounds disturbingly similar to the injuries on the 4 hikers. The Mansi tribe's testimony. The local indigenous Mansi people reported hearing unusual booming sounds in the night around the time of the tragedy. Some described it as sky explosions. Could these have been military weapons or something else entirely? A secret military base. Nearby declassified documents revealed a classified testing area close to Dyatlov Pass. Even the rescue workers later admitted, "We were not told what the military was doing in the region." Some witnesses saw soldiers searching before the official rescue began. Why were soldiers there? What were they looking for? All of this was removed from the original case files. Confusing evidence at the tent site. When investigators examined the tent closely, more strange details emerged. The hikers cut their way out of the tent, not through the entrance. The tent was stable, no avalanche signs. Food was laid out as if they were preparing dinner. Clothing was neatly folded. A flashlight was found on top of the snow, still working when switched on. The pattern of footprints showed calm, deliberate walking, not panic. If they fled in terror. Why were their movements so controlled? Even more eerie, some footprints belonged to people wearing no shoes at all. Others wore only socks or a single boot. Experienced hikers would never make such a suicidal decision unless something was forcing them out or something was inside the tent. A silent interview with the last survivor. Before he died, the surviving member, Yuri Yudin, was interviewed about the expedition. He spent years searching for answers. When asked what he believed happened, Yuri said only one thing: "If I had stayed with them, I would have died. Something forced them out of that tent, something they couldn't fight. I still don't know what it was, but I know it wasn't nature." He never changed his view. All theories, final analysis, and the last truth. With 9 bodies recovered, mysterious injuries documented, and confusing evidence piled onto investigators' desks, the Soviet authorities urgently needed an explanation. But the truth was too complicated and perhaps too dangerous to reveal. So, over the years, researchers, detectives, hikers, and scientists proposed dozens of theories. Some are logical, some are impossible, some are terrifying. Here are the most known theories, broken into 2 categories: realistic possibilities and mysterious explanations. Let's begin. The realistic theories. The avalanche theory. For decades, many insisted the hikers fled their tent because an avalanche was about to bury them. But this theory falls apart quickly. The slope was too gentle for an avalanche. The tent was still standing when rescuers found it. The footprints showed calm walking, not running. No signs of snow movement were found around the camp. Even modern avalanche experts concluded an avalanche at this location is extremely unlikely. This theory doesn't explain the crushed ribs, skull fractures, or radiation, so it was dismissed. The snow slab collapse theory. A variation of the avalanche theory claims that a block of snow partially collapsed onto the tent, forcing the hikers to escape. But again, nothing supports this. The tent poles remained upright. The tent fabric was intact except for the inside cuts. No heavy snow was found above or around the tent. This theory solves nothing. Military weapons testing, the most believed realistic theory. During the 1950s, the Soviet military conducted secret weapon tests across remote regions, including the Dyatlov Pass area. Some of these tests included parachute mines, concussion bombs, explosive devices that detonate mid-air, pressure-based weapons. These weapons could create internal organ damage, crushed ribs, skull fractures, massive pressure shock waves without leaving external wounds. That sounds exactly like the injuries found on 4 of the hikers. Additionally, several witnesses in nearby towns reported orange fireballs, glowing orbs, distant explosions in the sky. These match descriptions of military parachute mines, which explode above ground, sending a horizontal shockwave. This theory also explains why clothes had radiation, why the case was classified, why soldiers appeared at the site before rescuers, why the pass was closed for years. The military testing theory remains one of the strongest explanations. Mansi tribe. Attack. Some suggested the local Mansi tribe attacked the hikers, but there is zero evidence for this. The Mansi were peaceful. They had no reason to attack. There were no defensive wounds on the hikers, no signs of struggle, and 9 young, strong hikers would not be defeated without a fight. This theory was dismissed almost immediately. The mysterious theories. Now we move into the theories that made Dyatlov Pass legendary. These theories are not officially accepted, but the evidence sometimes leans in their favor. The infrasound fear theory. A rare phenomenon called infrasound, low-frequency sound waves humans cannot consciously hear, can induce panic, fear, nausea, a sense of impending doom. Some researchers believe strong winds created a Kármán vortex street around the mountain, producing infrasound. This could have caused the hikers to feel overwhelming terror, forcing them to cut out of the tent and flee. But this theory fails to explain the broken ribs, the skull fractures, the missing soft tissue, the radiation the camera found around Semyon's neck, the fire built calmly near the cedar. So this theory remains unlikely. The Yeti theory. This theory exploded after some of the hikers' photos showed large footprints in the snow. Some believe a creature attacked them, but there is no evidence of any animal attack. No claw marks, no bites, no dragging, no crushed footprints around the tent. This theory is popular online, but scientifically impossible. The UFO or extraterrestrial theory. There are 3 reasons people consider this possibility. Witnesses saw bright orange orbs in the sky, radiation found on clothing, internal injuries with no external wounds, similar to reports in other unexplained cases. Some believe the hikers witnessed something they were not supposed to see, and something silenced them. But again, no official evidence supports UFO involvement. Still, it remains one of the most famous theories. The KGB, or Secret Operation Theory. Some researchers believe the hikers were accidentally caught in a covert Soviet mission. Theories suggest 1 or 2 hikers were secretly working for the KGB. They were on a mission to deliver something or meet someone, or they witnessed a classified military event. Some suspicious elements support this idea. Zolotaryov, the oldest hiker, had a mysterious military past. He used a false name on official documents. Some of the hikers carried extra cameras for unknown reasons. The region nearby had classified military bases. Their injuries resembled blast pressure trauma, but no documents confirm a KGB mission. This theory remains possible, but unproven. Criminal attack or escapees. Some claim escaped prisoners attacked the hikers, but investigators found no foreign footprints, no signs of struggle inside the tent, no chaotic running. The theory was dismissed early. Unknown natural phenomenon. Some scientists have suggested a rare, never-recorded natural event, such as a microburst of wind, electromagnetic interference, sudden pressure wave, or rapid underground shift. These theories all try to explain why the hikers fled suddenly, but none explain the radiation, the injuries, or the missing soft tissues. The final truth. The mystery remains unsolved. In 2019, Russian officials reopened the investigation. In 2020, they officially concluded the hikers died due to a slab avalanche. But experts worldwide criticize the conclusion. The evidence does not support it, and many believe the government simply wanted to close the case permanently. To this day, none of the following have ever been explained. Why did 9 trained hikers flee their tent half-dressed? What caused 3 hikers to suffer catastrophic internal injuries with no external wounds? Why was radiation found on their clothing? Why was the case immediately classified? Why did soldiers appear before rescuers? Why was the area closed for years? What were the orange lights in the sky? Why were the hikers' cameras damaged with missing frames? Why did some hikers die separately, as if trying to escape something? Every answer creates new questions. Every theory leaves something unanswered. Every expert walks away confused. Even today, the Dyatlov Pass Incident remains one of the most mysterious tragedies in modern history. 9 hikers entered the mountains seeking adventure, achievement, and the beauty of the frozen wilderness. They were young. They were brilliant, they were prepared, and they deserved answers the world could never give them. Something happened on that mountain, something powerful, something sudden, or something terrifying enough to make 9 experienced survivalists abandon shelter in the dead of night. Whatever happened that night in 1959, it left a scar on the mountain, a silence in the snow, and a mystery that refuses to die. This is the dark history case, and this was the Dyatlov Pass Incident, the 9 hikers who died mysteriously.